Good evening, America. Happy Wednesday. Welcome to the latest edition of Just the News, No Noise. I'm your host, John Solomon, reporting to you as always from Washington, D.C. in the wiredtofishcoffee.com studios. Later in the show, I'm going to tell you about a special offer, but we want to get right away to breaking news. It's been 24 days into the Trump administration and 24 hours of extraordinary whirlwind developments. And now peace between Ukraine and Russia has become a real possibility. Why? President Trump announced a short while ago he'll be meeting with Vladimir Putin in Saudi Arabia and soon to negotiate a ceasefire, and that Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky, he's ready to make a deal too. And by the way, he's starting to throw some incentives to America, things he'd like to repay America for the war. Meanwhile, the thawing relations with Moscow resulted in 2 Americans returning home from Russian and Belarus prisons. And that's a sign that Americans might get a chance to get repaid for some of the billions of dollars it donated to Ukraine in the form of rare earth minerals. Because with those prison releases right after that occurred, Volodymyr Zelensky said, I'd like to give you some rare earth minerals and I'd like you to help us rebuild Ukraine. A sign that maybe reconstruction projects are ahead for America. Amanda had a great story on that this morning. I want to just mention one more thing before we turn to Amanda, who's temporary in California today. Just a few moments ago, the Justice Department under Pam Bondi sued New York State for being an illegal sanctuary state and impeding the ability of the federal government to enforce federal immigration law. Pam Bondi there at the news conference, you're seeing her there. This is the second state. Illinois got sued last week. New York this week. Everybody's on notice. If you get in the way of federal immigration law enforcement going forward, Amanda, you're going to end up in court on the opposite side of Pam Bondi. Amanda, a really amazing day. There's a lot of other history that played out today, but this notion that peace, which a lot of people thought was months off, could be just weeks off, pretty big deal, isn't it?
Yeah, you think about this from the perspective of 6 months ago, where there just really didn't seem to be an off-ramp. And John, anytime you and I had on a foreign policy guest, we would always ask them, what is the off-ramp? What does the end? What does a victory look like? And it seems that for many people who didn't necessarily understand what weakness on the global stage and weakness in foreign policy can do during administration, they say everything is all about perspective. There's nothing like having a leader come in like Donald Trump,
that's right,
who provides the binary strength of foreign policy to show you that perspective, to show you what things could look like under someone who has a very crystally clear defined foreign policy.
And that's really important that you said that, Amanda, because just a little bit ago, President Trump signed an executive order making clear that foreign policy is set by the president and that America speaks with only one voice. No more multiple voices in intelligence community and State Department freelancing and doing that. I think that's a really important thing. One other important thing happened today, and I want to put it on the marker for the culture of corruption that the Democratic Party still owns in a big way. In Illinois, a few hours ago, a federal jury found former Illinois House Speaker Mike Madigan, he was a protege of Barack Obama and really the Democrat machinery in Illinois, guilty on 10 corruption accounts. This is a trial and a case that showed just how widespread pay-to-play was in the Democratic Party. I don't want that today to pass without noting that there's a conviction, and that entire scheme has now been fully exposed, Amanda.
Yeah, look, we are seeing this up and down the government. The more that DOJ and Elon Musk does to expose it, the more that is exposed in the DOJ subcommittee hearings by Chairwoman Marjorie Taylor Greene. And this is not going to end. We are going to see it at nearly every level. And I know our next guest is going to want to talk about this too,
including the judiciary. I think that's going to be one of the next places we're all going to be talking about. Joining us right now is Wyoming Congresswoman Harriet Hageman, who sits on the House Judiciary Committee, has been doing some great work fighting weaponization. Congresswoman, great to have you on the show.
Good to be back. I always enjoy it.
We love having you on. You've done some amazing work looking at some of the potentially unconstitutional behavior of administrative law judges, and now we have some U.S. district judges who are telling a sitting president his team can't look at executive branch data. I'd like to get your thoughts on the judiciary and whether there's a wake-up moment for it in the soon, and could there even be impeachment proceedings against a few of these judges?
I think what you're saying is that the judges themselves recognize that they're on thin ice and that their decisions are most likely going to be reversed on appeal, but it's a waiting game. It's a matter of time. Can they throw a wrench in this administration, in the momentum that they have been moving forward with, and stop them from being able to enact some of the policies that we all elected President Trump to implement? So that's really what I think you're seeing is a concerted effort where they're judge shopping. They're going to jurisdictions where they know they've got a friendly person on the bench, and they're going to enter whatever decision is necessary to stop what it is, whatever the issue at hand is. I find it shocking that they are now saying judges are actually involving themselves in what needs to be stated on federal websites. I think that just demonstrates the absurdity of what these courts are doing, that they're going so far as to dictate what the president of the United States can have in terms of websites. There's nothing that requires the website at all. Yet, according to these judges, if it has anything to do with their pet projects, they are not going to allow him to change policies. That's clearly so far outside of their jurisdiction, and it's also contrary to what the Article 2 says in the Constitution.
And I think so many Americans have been, it's been a shock to the system to see this, because typically the standard for judgeship is that you don't even donate 1 red cent to any political cause, anything that's partisan. And now we are finding judges out there whose spouses, whose children, in one case, benefited from programs paid for by USAID. In the case of one of President Trump's judges, obviously his daughter's relationship with a marketing campaign that rallied against President Trump. Is it audacity that caused them to think that they could get away with it? What is it?
Corruption. I don't think that I would use the nice word of audacity, although I think that that definitely is a part of this. But I think that there is a level of corruption associated with government largesse anymore. Just as if you watched the interview yesterday in the White House with Elon Musk and the president and Little X, what you saw was an issue that I think is very, very important, which is there are civil servants, there are so-called public servants that may make $150,000 to $200,000 a year, yet have amassed tens of millions of dollars in terms of wealth. Samantha Power, who was the head of USAID under the Biden administration, is a classic example. She was making a couple of $100,000 a year. Her net worth before taking this position was in the millions, which for a public servant, I can't understand that. While being the head of the USAID, her net worth just absolutely skyrocketed. And I think that that's what you're seeing. You talked about the judge in New York who handled the fraud case with President Trump. His daughter made millions off of the fact that she was working for people like Adam Schiff and other Democrats. Her entire business model was attacking Donald Trump. And her father refused to recuse himself. So having practiced law as long as I did, and especially in litigation, I can tell you that I'm actually very shocked at what these judges are willing to do. Number one, with refusing to recuse, and number two, step over the line with them dictating what policy is. I think something else that it demonstrates is that the fact that I've been screaming about the over-bureaucratization of our government and the fact that it's the unelected bureaucrats that are running things, I don't think there's any better example than what these judges have done over the last couple of days of saying it is the bureaucrats that are in charge, not the elected officials. Again, I think we're ultimately going to win this, but I think it shows the hubris and the absolute amount of money that can be made off these various NGOs and having the proximity to power.
Yeah, such a great point. Money and power make people drunk. There's no doubt about it. Congresswoman, you said that some of these judges may be acting contrary to Article 2 of the Constitution. I want to ask a little bit. I talked to Congressman Greg Steube today. He said, listen, it may take an impeachment or two to send a message to the judiciary that you can't start becoming politically weaponized like the Justice Department did. Are there some remedies at hand for lawmakers like yourself? You take the law so seriously, you take the Constitution so seriously. Are there some remedies that lawmakers in Congress may seek to impose before judges get too far down this path of becoming politically weaponized like the Justice Department?
Things that I think that we need to be using in this process is that Rule 65 of the Rules of Civil Procedure, you cannot get an injunction unless you post a bond. And I think that we need to start demanding that the people who are bringing these lawsuits are required to post bonds, which in some cases may be hundreds of millions of dollars. The costs associated with this, the cost of putting a roadblock up against or in front of what Donald Trump is doing, it will have some real impacts on this country. The fact that we have found all of these horrible expenditures coming out of USAID, people want to say, well, he can't stop those. USID made those contracts. They made those agreements. I never voted on any of those programs. I don't believe anybody in Congress ever voted that we would be spending, $2 million for a comic book in Peru. Those are not the things that we appropriated money for. And I think that it would be perfectly appropriate to demand that these judges follow Rule 65, which it is not discretionary. It says specifically, I looked at it today, that they shall require the posting of a bond that is equal to what the damages would be in the event that the injunction is eventually overturned. And I think under those circumstances, these judges would be very hard pressed, because then these folks are going to have to go get bonds to actually cover this. So I think that that's an interim step that we should be taking right now. For every injunction that is sought, the Justice Department needs to be seeking a bond of comparable value of the impact of that injunction.
Wow, that's a big idea. One that might catch on real fast, I think. Yeah.
Yeah. I want to shift to something that is very important to your constituents, because Wyoming is a huge energy producing state. I think you guys produce somewhere upwards of 40 million megawatt hours annually, mainly through coal-fired electricity. So we spoke to EPA Administrator Zeldin 2 nights ago, and he was talking about reforming the permitting process and unleashing energy throughout this country. It's obviously not only going to benefit countrywide, but also Wyoming. Are you looking forward to that? How is it going to be implemented in Wyoming?
It's absolutely critical for the economic well-being of the United States. Energy security is national security. We are the largest coal producer in the nation. We are one of the top oil and gas producers, and we have phenomenal high-quality reserves of uranium. It is all of these resources that we need to be tapping into to ensure that we're going to have affordable and reliable energy. One of the things that I really took the Biden administration to task over was that every single policy that they implemented resulted in energy poverty. I don't believe in that. I believe that that is absolutely the wrong-headed way of approaching this. I think that one way of describing it is a way that a good friend of mine used to talk about it, and that is, we can be champions of abundance or we can be lords of scarcity. And the Democrats and the Biden administration and the UN and Germany and England and the EU and all of these various, the intellectuals among us, they are attempting to foist and enforce energy poverty on the masses. That is not the purpose of government, especially in the United States, when our government is of, by, and for the people. So what I am always looking for is I'm looking for the very best process that we can put into place to make sure that we're protecting our environment at the same time that we are producing the resources that we need. The policies that have been in place for the last several years are incredibly regressive to our lower class and our middle class citizens, because it makes energy costs just absolutely skyrocket. We are absolutely rock stars when it comes to producing energy and doing it well and taking care of the environment. I believe that we do need permitting reform. I cannot wait to be working with Mr. Zeldin from the EPA, as well as Doug Burgum with the Department of Interior. And there are several other agencies that we're just going to unleash the power of energy independence, and it's going to benefit every single American.
Yeah, that it is. Real quickly, Congresswoman, we've got to go in a second, but I want to ask you about the Anti-Woke Caucus and its opportunity to continue this war against wokeism and get America back to pragmatism. Tell us a little bit about what the caucus is going to achieve.
So it is a matter of exposing some of the things that have been embedded in our government and how incredibly destructive that they are. I want to say that what Elon Musk has been able to expose has been eye-opening for every single person in this country. There are Democrats who want to caterwaul and yell and scream and, rend their clothing, rip their hair out, things like that, because they're so upset about this. 99% of your average person out there with a lick of sense knows that what we've been funding and what we've been doing around the world is bad. Now, we can look at an agency like USAID and we can say it's a $50 to $60 billion agency, and maybe that's not that much money. I think it's a massive amount of money. But it also, what you have to look at is the kind of rot that it was actually sending out through grants and through funding. What they were doing in other countries, overthrowing countries, undermining their culture, undermining their stability and certainty. It's just amazing. And so much of it goes back to this woke ideology that just really needs to be ripped out by the roots. We need to get back to our Constitution and common sense.
Yeah, A lick of common sense. You said it just right. That's what's been missing in Washington, but it seems to have arrived with you and Elon Musk and President Trump. So a lot of fun ahead for us. Congresswoman, what a great opportunity to have you on the show today. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you.
All right, folks. Next, Just the News broke a major story about Catholic charities raking in billions of dollars to provide services to illegal immigrants. This all while Pope Francis has had some criticism of President Trump and his immigration policies. We're going to tackle that next with a good favorite guest of ours, Father Frank Pavone, right after these messages. Hey folks, did you know that American homeowners have over $32 trillion in equity? That's an amazing figure, but you know the bad news? Criminals are targeting it with a growing scam the FBI calls house stealing. Scammers can transfer your title right out of your name using a one-page document they file at the county. Then they can take out loans against your equity, even sell it behind your back. And the scariest part, you won't find out about it until collection or foreclosure notices start arriving in your mailbox. Now that is something you don't want to have happen, leaving you, of course, when that happens, in a financial and legal nightmare. The best way to protect your equity is with Home Title Lock's exclusive $1 million triple lock protection. This service offers 24/7 monitoring, urgent alerts, and if fraud should occur, the U.S.-based restoration team will spend up to $1 million to fix the fraud and restore your title. So when was the last time you checked on your title? If you're like me, the answer is never. And that's exactly why scammers are counting on you to fail. The good news is for 2025, Home Title Lock is offering you 25% off. And you also get a free title history report when you go to HometitleLock.com and use my promo code JTN25. Now make sure you check out the $1 million triple lock protection details when you get there. One more time, go to HometitleLock.com, use the promo code JTN25. Rob? Rob? The federal judge in Boston lifted the
Welcome back, everybody. Big news alert. John has the details. So, John, I'm going to toss it over to you for those.
Yeah, just a few minutes ago, Amanda, U.S. District Judge O'Toole in Boston ruled that Donald Trump has the right to carry on with his buyout program of federal workers. There had been a temporary hold. This judge had placed a hold to consider the legal issues. He concluded that the labor unions who were trying to trip up the president and stop the president from carrying out this program did not have legal standing, and therefore the program may proceed. That is a big win for President Trump and a big loss for liberal labor unions who were trying to stop the president from shrinking the size of government. We have more of that not over at justthenews.com. Go check that out. Amanda, back to you. We got a great guest coming up.
Yes, indeed. I imagine there were some hump day high fives happening around the Oval Office when that decision came down. All right. So if many of you have been following the news, the Vatican and Pope Francis have been putting out some opinions based on President Trump's immigration policies, the deportation processes that are taking place. And this pretty much coincides right along with one of John's great reporters, Stephen Richards, his story about how Catholic charities have been raking in billions, that's billions with a B, facilitating immigration across our border. We've covered a lot of these NGOs that are peppered along our southern border who help traffic back and forth. So with us to discuss this is a former Catholic priest who was defrocked by the Vatican for speaking out against Democrats who were pro-abortion and a lot of other issues surrounding that as well that we're going to talk to him about. He is the director of Priests for Life and the national co-chair of Pro-Life Voices for Trump, Frank Pavone. Frank, great to see you.
Hi, Amanda. Hi, John.
Hey there.
Great to see you. You know, I think it was Border czar Tom Homan who had a great retort when he was asked about this by reporters. And he said something to the effect of, you know, the Vatican has a wall, does it not? Vatican City has a wall. What's the difference between the Vatican having a wall, being able to protect its borders, and the United States? Why would the Pope say that this is going to end badly?
Yeah, that's a good question. You know, I worked at the Vatican for a while. I lived right outside the Vatican. That is a high wall that they have. You know, the fact of the matter is, and a lot of people don't think about the Vatican as a sovereign state, because it is. I mean, if you think about the church, Catholic Church, okay, but it's also a sovereign state and it's got a wall. The Pope is making politically charged comments. I mean, I've been speaking out for years now about the fact that he's meddling in American politics in a way that is not befitting of a Pope. His comments are always favoring to the Democrats and criticizing Trump. I've made the case directly to the Vatican and to the United States bishops that the best friend that the Catholic Church has right now is one Donald J. Trump. He is doing more for religious freedom, has done more than anybody else. And his policies on immigration, by the way, are not inconsistent with what you read in the Catholic Catechism about immigration. When you go to the Catechism, it says, yes, we welcome people. They have inherent human dignity. Listen, I don't know anybody that disagrees with the fact that they have human dignity. We have to help people as much as we can. But that's the operative phrase, as much as we can. Because then the Catechism goes on to say, nations that are welcoming immigrants have a right, have a duty to provide for their own people, to set laws and conditions for immigration, and those wanting to enter another country must obey its laws and respect its status as a nation and its culture. And that's exactly what President Trump is saying. We're not against immigration. We're against people throwing the law out the window and coming into a country without sharing its values. I see absolutely no reason why the Pope and the bishops should have any problem with that whatsoever.
I think you just schooled us as an important Catholic doctrine. I didn't even know that, and I'm a practicing Catholic. That was really helpful, Father. I want to ask a little bit about Catholic Charities. And listen, I don't doubt for a second they're trying to do the right thing, but they make a lot of money doing it. And you just talked about human dignity. The way that people migrated to the United States on Joe Biden's watch at the behest of drug cartels, with women being raped and young children being forced into drug muling, it seems the most inhumane way. It seems as though it's almost an anti-Catholic way to ask someone to come to this country. How did this get so distorted?
It was so horrific. I mean, you see those videos. I remember one with the mother pushing her baby underneath the sharp barbed wire fence. Yeah. Meanwhile, she's up to her waist in mud. Is this human dignity? This is not the way people are supposed to be treated. No, I think, John and Amanda, it's a blind spot that many of the bishops and many of the advisors of Pope Francis have, a blind spot that gives them bias in favor of Democrat policies. I think that's much of the, and I think also what's happening, there is a deep connection between the deep state and the deep church. I think we've got to, and I'm so grateful what's happening right now with Doge and uncovering all this wasteful spending, not just wasteful spending, corrupt spending. This is going to shine a light on what's going on in the Catholic Church. And we got to dig deeper into this. I think there's a lot of the same people that have been messing around with America that are messing around with the Catholic Church. Just like there's been weaponization of government in America, there has been weaponization of government in the Catholic Church. As you already mentioned, I've been a victim and a target of that, many, many, many others, and it is time that this be exposed. You know, years ago, the communications director for the United States Catholic Bishops wrote a book called Nothing to Hide. Russell Shaw is his name. And he pointed out in that book that we got a problem with transparency in the Catholic Church. We believe, I'm a practicing Catholic too, like John, like you mentioned, you are as well. Listen, we believe in the hierarchy. We believe in the way Jesus structured the church. We believe in legitimate authority. But we don't believe that they should be able to hide behind their authority and not explain to people why they're making the decisions they're making, how they're doing the things that they're doing. And now I think we're at a great moment, because just as the voters rejected woke culture in this last election, those same voters are sitting in the pews of the churches. It's time to reject wokeness in the church. And one of the ways we do that is be a little bit more discriminating in how we spend our money. Maybe we don't want to give it to Catholic Charities. There's thousands of other ministries and missions in the church that we could support as good Catholics.
Yeah.
And speaking of rejecting notions, I have a lot of Catholic friends who are sorely disappointed with Pope Francis. Do you anticipate a change could be coming?
Oh, yes. Oh, yeah, I think people want to. I just sent out a tweet the other day saying, hey, listen, we're enjoying this new presidency in the United States. How about Pope Francis take Pope Benedict's example, step aside. It'll be a blessing for the church and the world. No disrespect intended. It's just a fact, because people are confused. We don't want to, wish ill on anyone or say even impute bad motives. But people are confused. The role of the Pope is to clarify and strengthen people in the faith, not to confuse them. This Pope, by their fruits you will know them. Whatever his intentions are, we can't read his heart, but we can certainly see the results. He's creating a lot of confusion, and it's time for a breath of fresh air in the church leadership, just like we have a breath of fresh air in the White House.
Gave us a new term, the deep church. That's a very important one. That's a good one, Frank.
Listen, really, let's work together.
Curriculum.
Let's work together on that. I think there's a lot more to be exposed.
I would like to do that, sir. I would.
Yeah, absolutely. Frank Pavone, Director of Priests for Life, and also the National Co-Chair for Pro-Life Voices for Trump. Thank you so much for being with us tonight. You are always a breath of fresh air. Thank you, sir.
Thank you both.
All right, everybody, we're going to take a quick commercial break, and we'll be back in just a few minutes.
Hey, America, the fight to restore our great nation is only beginning, and now is the time to take a stand, and Patriot Mobile is leading the charge. As America's only Christian conservative wireless provider, Patriot Mobile offers a way to vote with your wallet without compromising on quality or convenience. That's important, right? Patriot Mobile isn't just about providing exceptional cell phone service, it's a call to action to defend our rights and our freedoms. With Patriot Mobile, you'll get outstanding nationwide coverage because they operate on all 3 major networks. Now, if you have cell phone service today, you can get cell phone service with Patriot Mobile with a coverage guarantee. But the difference is every dollar you spend supports the First and Second Amendments, the sanctity of life, and our veterans and first responders. Switching is easy. Keep your number, keep your phone, or upgrade. Their 100% US-based customer support team are going to help you find the right plan for you. Right now, go to patriotmobile.com/justnews or call 972-PATRIOT and get a free month of service with promo code JUSTNEWS. Switch to Patriot Mobile today and defend freedom with every call and text you make. Visit patriotmobile.com/justnews or call 972-PATRIOT. Welcome back, America. It was such a busy day. I don't want the entire day to pass without paying attention to something that happened on Capitol Hill, the first DOJ subcommittee hearing. It was a doozy. And by the way, I've been reading a lot in the New York Times and AP stories saying, everyone keeps saying without any proof that there's fraud in government. Oh my gosh, anyone who watched today's subcommittee hearing found the proof. They got the receipts. Joining us right now, a member of that great subcommittee that held that hearing today, Texas Congressman Michael Cloud. Congressman, good to have you on the show, sir.
Oh, good to have you. Man, what a day.
It was a day. It was amazing. You and your colleagues in the subcommittee prosecuted a really important case, helping people understand just how wasteful government bureaucrats are. Give us some of the highlights, things that you think most mattered today to the American public.
Well, we've known something's wrong, right? Things just aren't working. We're not getting a good ROI for our taxpayer dollar, and we're beginning to see and understand why. When you find out really that in so many ways our tax dollars are going to nefarious purposes. Some of it's just waste, fraud, abuse, mismanagement. But then even within that, one of the things that came up was about the internal threat and the external threat. Billions of our dollars are going overseas to countries that are working against us to undermine us. Some of these monies are going to NGOs that are set up in other countries, even to lobby against American companies that are trying to do business here. We've seen the long list of stuff that's been going to countries for drag shows and crazy stuff like that, across the world. And the American people are sitting back home going, I'm trying to make ends meet, and this is what you're using my tax dollars for? You've been telling me it's been going to things that are important, and this is not. And so all this stuff's coming uncovered, and the American people are seeing that the important work that President Trump's doing, this is a reform election. This is about getting this government working again for the American people, and us here in Congress realizing that we're here to serve the American people. This should be a bipartisan course correction, but they have just lost their minds on the left side of the aisle, so to speak. And as many times as they can say Elon's name, they think it's going to be a win for them. The American people aren't buying it.
I think you're right.
Congressman, I tuned in and out and back in and out of this committee hearing, and I got to tell you, it did not disappoint. It was incredible. But it seemed like towards the end, there was maybe only one Democrat who was left standing. Do you anticipate that at any point Democrats will re-engage and try to get back on the side of getting rid of waste, fraud, and mismanagement? Does it seem like there is any impetus whatsoever for them to want to join the fight?
I hope so. I don't know about you. I remember Bill Clinton standing at the podium and saying the era of big government is over.
That's
And
right.
of course, since then, it's only grown massively. And now we see again that our in many ways our government's become a money laundering scheme for these leftist organizations and ideologies. And so this could be a bipartisan issue. Certainly, much of the problem has been, and how we got here, been a bipartisan issue in the sense of how it was created. Certainly exacerbated over the last 4 years with the Biden administration. But this could be something that we join hands and say, hey, it's time to right the ship. This is waste, fraud, and abuse. We're not even talking about changing policy right now. We're just talking right now. We spend over $2 trillion more a year than we take in. We might be able to cut that in half just by getting rid of waste, fraud, and abuse. That's not even an argument over policy. That's just getting rid of improper payments and money that's going to crazy things that it shouldn't be going to. And then we can have those substantive conversations over what's really important and what we should be funding. But unfortunately, so far, what we've seen is just, you would think they would have learned the lesson from the election, but it would seem that they have not.
Yeah, it is amazing. Sir, one of the big topics today, Medicaid and all the fraud that can be saved. And that's a big return on investment. Tell us a little bit about what you heard today on that.
Yeah, it's amazing. Improper payments alone could potentially get us about $50 billion a year. And some of the ways that right now, the number one demographic on Medicaid right now is able-bodied people who are able to work. That's not the people that Medicaid was originally designed to help, people who are disabled or children or pregnant moms or these sorts of things. And so, us getting this back to right now, we need people in the workforce, and people should be working if they can work. And so just us taking care of these simple things that are 80% issues with the American people, we can begin to right the ship on these sorts of things. And again, $50 billion of just improper payments. Does anybody disagree with that? Well, apparently today in the committee, people were arguing against us addressing those kind of issues. But again, the American people are with us on this. They want to see a government that functions for them. None of us like paying taxes, but we could understand the need of it. But when it's going to waste, fraud, and abuse, man, that's not what we're supposed to be doing up here. We've got to right this ship. We have to remember it's not our money; it's the American people's money.
Yeah, important
right.
point.
Sir, I want to ask you about what happened over on the Senate side of Capitol Hill. So much news coming out, but among it, Tulsi Gabbard confirmed as DNI. This is someone who I think had a relatively rocky road getting to this point. The only Republican who voted against her was former leader and now Senator Mitch McConnell. Your take on that? How big of a reformer is she going to be in that role?
Well, this is going to be great, really. She was actually targeted, and now we have somebody who was targeted now serving as the director of national intelligence. So that's remarkable, and exactly what the American people voted for when they said, we want reform. We don't want a government that's weaponized against us, and what President Trump has done in putting forth a slate of candidates that are coming in not to fill a seat, not to maintain the status quo, not to play bureaucrat, but they're coming in to get changes for the American people. They're not looking for a career of this, but they are coming in, again, to get wins for the American people and to get this government functioning for the people instead of against them. And so it's exciting to see that happening, and it's good to see that the Senate is understanding that President Trump and many of them basically rode his coattails into office, and it's good to see them supporting the president's agenda that needs to happen.
Yeah, no doubt. Real quickly, sir, the progress being made towards Russia-Ukraine peace rapid today, talks going on, optimism. Just get your quick reaction to that.
Yeah, here you see a president who understands that peace through strength isn't just a talking point, and the stability he brings to the world. One of the things we can appreciate his savviness in the economy and what he's done in his first term that we can point to, that we see him already working on in the second term. But some things that people forget is the amazing foreign policy accomplishments he had, the Abraham Accords, him doing everything he can, no new wars started, and really, truly having genuine care and concern yes, America first, but we don't want people dying in these other countries as well from needless wars. So let's bring the people to the table. Let's see if we can bring peace. And this is the kind of thing that should be getting you Nobel Peace Prizes if they had their head on straight. But it's good to see the respect that foreign leaders have now for the White House. A stark contrast to where we were just a month ago.
Yeah. So the work you're doing at DOGE, I think, will be generationally impactful. You're going to save future generations a whole lot of debt with the great work you're doing. A great honor to have you on the show today. Thank you so much for joining us.
Oh, thank you. God bless y'all.
Yeah, as well, sir. Thank you. All right, folks, coming up, we'll talk more about one of the agencies the Trump administration could be cutting entirely. The Department of Education, the superintendent of Oklahoma schools, Ryan Walters, up next right after these messages.
Welcome back, everybody. In the ongoing effort to make the federal government just a little bit skinnier, just a teeny tiny bit, one of those agencies that's in the crosshairs of not only DOGE, but also parents across America is the Department of Education. Because let's face it, based on standardized test scores, it's not really doing a bang-up job for anyone except for maybe the unions. So with us to talk about that is Oklahoma State Superintendent Ryan Walters. Thank you for being here, sir.
Thank you for having me.
I want to ask you about specifically because, in the past, when we've had this conversation about stripping away the Department of Education, it's been kind of an esoteric topic because it had not come to fruition with respect to President Trump taking office. What does that actually look like? Does it look like keeping a skeleton crew at the top at the federal government and then sending all the rest of the money back to the states? Does it mean scrapping it all together? What's the ideal scenario?
Oh, look, I think the ideal scenario is getting it completely done away with. There should not be a Department of Education. So I think that has to happen, right? President Trump, it's amazing how quickly he has moved. I've told my staff, be ready to go every day. The new executive orders that come down every day are tremendous. And again, he's showing, listen, this apparatus is standing in the way of educational progress, not promoting it. So again, the agency has to go away in its entirety, number one. Number two, absolutely, if there's something that Congress wants to incentivize across the country, that's fine. Block grant it to states. Okay, give them full autonomy over those dollars where they can innovate, they can help accelerate some learning in some of those degrees. Number three, and one of the biggest answers here is universal school choice. Congress should pass President Trump's universal school choice package. That way, every parent in the country has those options available to them. Every parent's empowered, no matter if you're in a red state or blue state. This unlocks the potential of every learner. You do those three things, and President Trump's agenda here, you're going to see an America stronger than ever with a future brighter than ever. And again, President Trump has been moving right along with that. Linda McMahon can't wait for her confirmation hearing. She's going to knock it out of the park. I just cannot be more excited about the vision and the first few steps of doing away with this agency.
Sir, speaking of vision, you have been leading day in and day out on novel new ways to make the education system better in Oklahoma. We've had John for almost every one of the developments, a new one in the last couple of weeks, the State Board of Education. We had this on Just the News the other day, starting the process to put a rule in that schools have to ask parents the immigration status of children so you know how many illegal immigrants are in the school system and what burden they add to the finances. Tell us why this is important. I know the left's gone nuts with it, but this has a sound rationale for why you're doing it.
Yeah, the left has gone nuts over it, but look, here's the reality. We know at a minimum that we have over 4,000 illegal immigrants in our schools, which has cost the state $474 million under Joe Biden. Okay. That's an amount that taxpayers, hey, we don't account for that when we budget. We don't tell schools. That's information we don't know, but we have now gotten it from voluntary information given over by parents. So the reality is that's a minimum. We need to understand exactly how big is the issue of illegal immigration in our school? What's the exact number, number one? Number two, what countries are we talking about that they're coming from? Because again, what we're having to do is allocate resources in real time. Teachers' classrooms are bulging, some over 30 students per class. You have resources that are being diverted to cover the needs of these students that again are coming from all over the world. We have to get a handle of this issue. Number one. Number two, we've got to be able to work with law enforcement. ICE and President Trump have said, listen, schools, if we need information, if we launch an investigation, you have to work with us, which, by the way, is common sense, right? You've got MS-13 that has come across the border and into our schools. You have child sex trafficking. We've got tens of thousands of kids that have been sex trafficked across the border. Of course, if law enforcement says, listen, We need information around this family. Do you have it? We've got to be able to provide that to them so that, again, kids can be deported with their families if their families are being deported. Kids can be protected in case they're in danger of a gang. And 3, of course, if they've been sex trafficked, we have to make sure that we identify these individuals and get them to safety.
So important.
You know, another one of the left's initiatives when it comes to education is DEI, and we recently learned that the Biden administration routed $1 billion to DEI. Now, I'm doing math in my head, and I'm a product of public school, so this is either a testament to or an indictment of the Department of Education, but I believe you take $1 billion over 50 states, and that's $20 million per state. What could states have done with $20 million to enrich students more so than DEI?
Guys, it's unbelievable. When I took office, I was fighting some of my fellow Republicans that were going, just take all the federal dollars, all of them. And I go, guys, some of this has absolute nonsense tied to it. It's got critical race theory. It's got DEI. It's got transgenderism. In math grants, what states could have done with this is we could have had more tutoring. All the kids that fell behind, we could have helped catch them back up. We could have had more direct instruction in math where kids could actually do basic arithmetic. So when they entered the workforce, they actually could build upon that. Maybe they get into an engineering program. We could have had more kids in our career technical colleges and institutes. Think about that. Think about more welders, electricians. I mean, think about all the opportunities that were missed here because Joe Biden's administration was obsessed with the cult of wokeism. And again, you look at this and you look at how destructive it is, and you also look at the missed opportunity that we could have been innovating. We could have been doing things like merit pay like we do in Oklahoma, rewarding the best and brightest teachers. We could have had these initiatives launched nationwide, but they were more concerned with sowing hatred for America and undermining the basic units of our country and society than they were educating our kids.
The head scratcher. Real quickly, sir, we only got about a minute left. I know you're concerned about the declines that we see across the country, math, reading, the core basics. What are some insights you're learning about how you can turn the tide on those trend lines?
Yeah, look, I mean, you see these numbers. I mean, this is Joe Biden's, education system. Again, you see across the board, the involvement from the federal government made things worse. What we've seen here in Oklahoma that works is this. You've got to bring free market incentives into schools. We came in and said, look, if you're a failing school, if you don't right the ship, we're going to take you over and we're going to turn you into a charter school. Hey, teachers, if you do a great job, we pay you more. Tutors, if you catch kids back up, we pay you more. We use school choice across the board. When you allow the free market to work, it works in conjunction with human behavior. It works with those instincts that human beings have to achieve better when they're incentivized that way. Right now, every incentive is the opposite. You fail, we give you more money. Okay, well, what do you think you're going to do? You're going to get more failure. So we've got to continue to push for free market solutions in education. We've got to continue to drive the teachers' unions out. Parents in, parents want to be involved, invite them in, bring them along with their kids' educational career, and you're going to see flourishing like we've seen here in Oklahoma.
Amazing.
In practically every other field, you are paid more based on your merit and your experience and your ability to do the job well. It has always baffled me that that's not a part of the education and teacher pay structure. Oklahoma State Superintendent Ryan Walters, you're an innovator in Oklahoma, and we love having your voice here on this show. Thanks for being here.
Thank you guys for having me on.
Absolutely. All right, everybody, we've got more to discuss on the other side of this. We're not a discussion block, though. We've got a guest, so stay tuned.
Welcome back, America. We're going to jump into that conversation about pro-life victories in a second, but first, some breaking news from Just the News. Just a few minutes ago, a state appeals court in Florida handed Donald Trump a major win, saying that his lawsuit against the Pulitzer Committee can proceed, and he has the right to try to prove that the Pulitzer Committee acted with, get a load of this, actual malice or reckless disregard for the truth by awarding those Pulitzers to those Russia collusion stories that turned out to be, well, as we all know, not a real story. More of that over at justthenews.com. Go check it out right now. We're going to dive right in here. We're very lucky to be joined by the CEO and president for 40 Days for Life, Sean Carney. Sean, great to have you on the show. What a few months it's been for the pro-life movement. I think the most epic moment, maybe just a week or two ago, when all Democrats voted against the Born Alive Act. I don't know how they can do this, but tell us the politics and the optics of this.
Well, it's sick. I mean, this is a law that would protect a child who committed some kind of crime by surviving the attempt on their life. This is for abortion survivors to give them medical care if they survive an abortion. And all Democrats but one voted against this, none in the Senate, only one congressman. And this just goes beyond politics, John. I mean, this isn't like healthcare or do we invade Iraq or not, or big pharma. This is basic decency. What's wrong with these people that they would just leave a baby girl left to die? And this does happen in many states throughout our country. You know, we put Kermit Gosnell, the Philly abortionist, in prison for 3 accounts of murder because he cut the heads off of babies after they were born. Do we need to free him? Do Democrats want to free him? Do they want to give Scott Peterson, who's on death row for the death of his wife who was pregnant, and he got second-degree murder for the unborn child, are we going to give him a mistrial? He wants one. I think most Democrats, I guess they would say yes. It's really unprecedented. Even Planned Parenthood 15 years ago wouldn't go near a law like this.
Yeah.
Extraordinary.
And for Democrats who are so #girl boss, is there anything more girl boss than a baby girl surviving an abortion? It's unbelievable. I want to ask you about what President Trump can do, though, in his second term for the pro-life movement, because he did so much in his first term. What is left for him to accomplish in this category?
Yeah, well, he picked up where he left off after being the most pro-life president we've ever had by far. He immediately took all international funds for abortions overseas away. He defunded Planned Parenthood internationally, which is huge in places like Latin America and Africa, where we've gone in and told people who love families that they shouldn't have any children. He has hit the ground running. The next big step, something he wanted to do in January of 17, but he didn't have the strength of Paul Ryan and other weak Republicans, but he has that now, and that is defunding Planned Parenthood here at home. They get $750 million of tax dollars. They do 392 abortions in their last reported year. There is no reason, if everybody is saying this is no longer a federal issue, it goes up to the states, they shouldn't get federal dollars. They have the votes to do it. They need to defund Planned Parenthood.
Yeah, that'll be a historic moment, and one that I talked to a lot of lawmakers this week. There's momentum going towards that. That's going to be a big moment. There have been other victories in the courts, some that you yourself have been involved in. Bring us up to speed on just the victories that the pro-life movement is scoring right now.
Yeah, it's been great. I mean, 40 Days for Life, we hold peaceful vigils, in 1,700 cities. We're the largest pro-life organization in the world, and we've had to defend our free speech. We won a huge case in Westchester, New York. We won the first provision where they're just trying to ban, they're not apologizing for it, they're trying to ban 40 Days for Life, these peaceful people. There's been no crime, there's been no incident. They're just trying to ban us from being outside their local abortion facility. Even if you're like 120 meters away in a coffee shop, you could be charged with a felony. So we won the first provision of that against these buffer zones, which, by the way, the Supreme Court unanimously over its history has said that these aren't, Ginsburg said they're un-American. The Supreme Court's always rejected these. So the way our case is built, if we win in Westchester, the second revision, this will go to the Supreme Court, and we look forward to banning buffer zones for all Americans. This is a huge free speech victory, no matter what side you're on.
Sir, a lot of Americans watched and cheered as Senator Tommy Tuberville became a serious thorn in the side of Democrats when it came to the Pentagon funding travel for service members for abortion. That is no longer happening under this administration. What does that mean for the pro-life movement?
It's great, and he's great. It makes you want to root for Auburn, even though I can't do that as an Aggie. It's just a wonderful victory. Basically Biden, once the Roe was overturned, he made abortion a sacrament, in just any department, please push abortion. And now the Pentagon, was flying women. It's so degrading to our military servicemen and women. And so he got rid of that. And I just think you're going to see, the FDA deregulating the abortion pills, all of this stuff. The Trump administration is doing a great job at going back, looking at this, and God bless Tuberville.
Yeah, that's a big moment. You picked a big fight. She's an Auburn graduate. You got to be careful there with that one. No,
I didn't know that. I promise.
Yes. Oh, don't get her started, please. Real quickly.
I know it.
I want to get just quickly. All right, we only got about 30 seconds. RFK Jr. says he's going to study safety of abortion pill. That was a surprise for a lot of people. Why is that important?
Yeah, it's awesome. I'm an RFK fan. I have been because he said he would uphold the Trump, pro-life agenda. I've talked to his people. Not only does he want to go after the dangerous abortion pills because they have killed women, they have harmed women. They're also bad for the environment, and that is something that he has brought up repeatedly. And so it's very exciting to have him to get a fresh look and to look at these dangerous big pharma abortion pills.
Pretty amazing.
Yeah.
Wow.
Well, Sean Carney, it's very exciting to have you as well, president of 40 Days for Life. Thanks so much for being here. Glad we could finally get you on. I know scheduling's been a little wonky, but we appreciate you sticking in there and being with us tonight. All right, everybody, that's going to do it for us on this evening. Grant Stinchfield is going to take you through the next hour, but we will be back here tomorrow night. That's Thursday at 6 p.m. Eastern on Real America's Voice. Have a safe and blessed night.